In this example, we're working with the Acme Appraisal spreadsheet. First thing I want to talk about is filtering data. You have over 400 rows of information, or 400 records, I would say. And what we want to do is we want to narrow things down. We want to see what a certain appraiser is. In a nutshell, this spreadsheet here shows what a few appraisers have done working for Acme, where we want to know what one person has done, accomplished this month, what we're going to pay him. We'll be doing that later. And the filtering is a very powerful way of going in and analyzing. We click on the Data tab. We have the funnel there called Filter. We click on it. When we go into here, we see these little arrows here. It allows us to go and see what we're doing. So if I click inside the appraiser thing here, that triangle there, I want to know what one person has done. I can also find out several. Like if I want to know what Ed, Jerry, and Bob did, I would say okay. And if I want to see it in the correct order, I could right click in here, and then I could left click on, there should be a thing here for sorting. Sort A to Z. So I'm seeing Bob, Ed, and Jerry. So I'm seeing what they've done. I want to get rid of that filter. I can click inside there. I could say clear filter. Let's say what we're going to do, and I have a sheet in the file here called the count of Chiku transactions. That will be a little bit later on that I'm doing that. So if I go into here, I click inside here, uncheck to select all. I check off Chiku. I say okay. It's showing everything that he's done. However, let's say I want to know how many transactions Chiku did in this period. And if I were to do the count, or the count A in here, it's going to show 403 records. Other thing too, when you look to the left here, do you see how the row numbers are all random here? We didn't delete them. They're just hidden at this point because they're filtered. But what I want to do, I want to know how many Chiku transactions there are. There's this really cool function called Subtotal. If I type in equal subtotal, and then I type in a left parenthesis, I put in a 3. It's showing what they all do, account A. Some of these things that you won't use, but you might want to use the max, the min. There's a few of them in there. It's like a little code there. So I do that, 3, I type in a comma, and then I just highlight the range where it would be G2 colon G403, close the parentheses, I hit the enter, it says 40. If I want to do this where I'm working with just numbers, it would be the same thing. I'll copy this, bring it over. It's saying 40, but when you're working with numbers, you could change that to a 2. You got to know the number 3 for the subtotal because we're working with words. Chiku, that's alpha. This is numeric. And even if I had a number in here, alphanumeric will cover that. And I have the thing here. There's this example in the file where I show it in here. Going back into the thing here. Now this is even cooler. Let's say I want to narrow things down a little more. Let's say I want to know what's going on with a certain company. I could go into the company thing here, and let's say I want to know about First Union, Greenpoint, and let's say HSBC. I check them off, and then what it's doing now, it's giving me a total of 13. So that way you can really zoom this down from hundreds of rows down to a couple. What we're going to be doing next is determining the pay for each appraiser. So I'm going to just delete this information here. I don't want this filtered anymore. I click on the filter here. It is gone. Now what I want to do the payroll. This is relatively easy. Couple of things. Don't get distracted. You need to concentrate very carefully on this. So we've removed the filter. What I want to do here, we have all these people here. We have to sort it first. If you don't do that, it's going to put a subtotal between Chico and Bob, between Bob and Vinny and Manny, then another one there for Chico. So to do that, we could sort. Again, you could use the right click inside here. Sort, that is the best and the fastest way, A to Z. You can also do a filter, a sort on the page layout tab, where you have it there. You could also go on the home tab. You've got a sort and filter there. You have custom sorts. We're doing a basic sort now. Next step here, we want to find out two different things. This is an appraiser. They're going to get a check for this month. We're also going to find out what we made every month. We have columns H and I. And so we're on the data tab. And if you go to the far right, it says subtotal. We're on that ribbon, that toolbar. And I'm not going to have anything highlighted. That could cause a problem. Be careful. If I do something like this subtotal here, it says, you could say cancel. You want the rest, you could say okay. But typically I only go into one cell, subtotal. Now, when we do this, pretty easy. It requires a little bit of concentration and logic. And what it is here, since we're paying the appraisers, we're going to change this here, the first one here. We're going to find the appraiser. We check off appraiser. Now what I want to do here, I want to find out how much I'm paying him, how much I made. I'm not going to use count. I'm going to use sum. And then you're going to add the subtotals. You're not going to put on the inspection date. You might want to look, because sometimes it puts it in a crazy place. You're going to check off these two things. Be careful with the mouse. These are the two things here. And what it is here, you're going to be doing a printout. They're going to be getting a document. And I would say, let's put a page break between each one. We say, okay. Takes a second. And as you can see here, I had something wrong in here. I had property checked off. Unintentional, but I wanted to show you. What do? I'm going to click on subtotal. And then I'm going to say remove all. Okay? Takes a minute. Okay? You got to be careful when you're doing this. Okay? Other thing I often say, you might want to copy the sheet, do a file save as, so that way if you mess things up, which I just did, you're not completely up the creek. So I'm going to drag over, put my mouse in there, control click, drag to the right. I have an alternate sheet, okay? So what I want to do here, I'm going to start this again, subtotal. So it remembers here, no, it didn't this time. Sometimes it does. So what I want to do here at each change in, and I'm going to hit the cancel here. I want to sort this again, just to make sure. Sort A to Z. It was sorted, but it doesn't hurt to double check or triple check. So we're going to go into subtotal now. And at each change in appraiser, check that off. Use the function sum. We got that inspection date there. We're going to check off fee, house fee. Let me go up here again. Double check. We're fine now. We want a page break. We say okay. This is good. Next thing I want to talk about, you've got a nice long thing here, and it's showing that Bob is getting $2,050. I'll just zoom this up a little bit. We're losing things on the right, but that's okay. $2,050, $48.25 for the house. You got this 1, the 2, and the 3 to the left of the A here, if I click on the 1, it's just showing our grand total is $48,000 in payroll, $107,000 we earned. I click on the 2. This is great. It's just showing all the checks that I have to make out, and they all add up to $48,000. And again, it's showing the subtotal feature in here that we talked about before. This was all done automatically. It's just saying subtotal here, in there, it's automatic. Great. The number 3 shows everything. If we go into the number 2, and then if I go into here, and I go on the plus next to Ed, it's just showing me his 2 transactions. I go on the plus over here. For Mo, it's showing me that information. I can also collapse it by going on the minus sign. So this is good. Next thing I want to do here, if I'm going to print this out, and I'm going to go into the full-fledged view. If I print this out here, it's going off the page, okay? If I'm just going here real fast here, and you got a couple of columns going off here, what you could do is narrow a column, hide a column. Like if I go here and pull this column in a little bit, and then I do a Control P again, it's still on 40. This is trial and error. I'm not going to be wasting time on this right now. But what it's doing here is giving you the information. Next thing I want to do, we're printing this out. Other thing too, you don't want the appraiser to know what the house fee was. You hide the column. You right click, you left click on hide. And if I were to do the print preview now, I have this dotted line which shows that I'm still going off. And I could narrow this column here where it's going to wrap a little more. The dotted line is to the right. I'm in the print preview. It's now on 20 pages. Next thing. We've got this done. We might want to print out a version for us. It says HJ. I'm doing my version here. Highlight the 2 columns on hide. Other thing too, as I mentioned here, if you go into the bottom row here, you would have to hide that row or delete that row if you want to. I would suggest just hiding it at this point. Next thing, if you're emailing something to somebody and they have half a brain, they're going to know you've got a missing column. It's going HJ. You've got 2 choices. You could go into here and lock the spreadsheet so that nobody can unhide things here. That's a little bit of work. We talk about this later on in another lesson. Or another simple solution is to convert this to a PDF. Very easy. I go to print, I click on export, and then I click on create this, create that. It will take a moment. It's going to publish this. I click on publish here, and then in a moment you're going to get a PDF file, which is not a spreadsheet. It's got all the information there, so the person will not see the data. So I'll close out of that. This is the spreadsheet. Next thing that I will say is make sure you save your work as you go along. If you do mess it up, or I screwed this up here, I could just delete this worksheet here. I could right click, delete, copy the other worksheet again, or do a file save as. This is important. And you might want to jot down notes if you're doing this on a continual basis. Within a few weeks, you'll have it memorized.